Hey guys, how's it going? Ghostly Rich here today, and today we are going to be installing my old JK suspension, which I just took off of the Jeep the other week, as you guys know, and we're gonna put it on my brother's TJ. You've seen this in a couple videos too. So, the first thing that we're going to need to do, take a look at our fancy rim. We're gonna be taking and bolting off a rim. Step one, take breaker bar, just break the lugs loose so that way when we lift this, it comes off nice and easy. So if you take a T50 on the pan arm, if you look, I'm just underneath the Jeep. You're gonna I loosened it with a ratchet, broke it loose, and then there wasn't a lot of room in here. You could either remove your steering rack, which I really didn't want to do. So what I did is I put the socket on there, then I used this, put it into a 10 millimeter ratcheting box wrench, which really made it easy, and ratcheted it out. And now that it's free of the nut, I'm just going to free this, and then that'll pull out the track bar. Once you've freed the beast and you see that that bar is hanging down because you've got that screw out, now it's time to jack her up. So we're going to be putting the jack stand underneath, but you want to lift the body, so I like to just go off of here, left pumping, just go right off of there, and then put that in just to support for right now. Then what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your tire off. After you do that, feel free to take your jack stand, put it at its lowest point, because we're gonna drop that axle as low as we can go, so when we pump the body up, we can get the most amount out of it, so we might not need a spring compressor for there. Look at that 18-year-old BDS suspension, how fancy she looks. That's really rusty. That's gonna be fun. So if I were you guys, when you're at this point, well, I'm gonna lower onto the jack stand, take off the other side. I would highly suggest around this point, you go and you take out both sides, grab your penetrating fluid, and shoot your bolts with penetrating fluid to loosen those up. Oh, this is back nutted. There's a nut down here, nut up here. Make sure you take the back nut out. You can put a 14 or 9/16 on the bottom, put a 14 up here, or 9/16 and loosen the top bolt off. And that's just spreading it so this wrench goes this way to loosen it. For up top here, take the top nut off first. Secondary nut should just come off afterwards. This one will clean the threads and that one just comes right off. And then for down here, you're gonna need a 13 millimeter or a 1/2 inch, and it's gonna be a little bit harder to break them loose, but like I said, if you can, shoot some penetrating fluid and it'll make your job a little easier. When you're loosening up the top, make sure that you put on one on the bottom. What I did is I just put an open box wrench up top, and then I put a 13 mil, so it's 13 mil box wrench up top to hold it, and the 13 mil down here, and then just ratchet it off or impact, whatever you want to do. But yeah, once you do that, technically, you just compress this and pull it out. And look at that beauty. So you're just gonna shoot a little bit of fluid on the bushing here. We just got some penetrating fluid, loosen everything up a little bit, put it on the blocks. Just like so. You need to put it right here and just a couple love taps, get her out. As you can see now, it looks just like your stock fronts. So now we need to replace this bushing with that bushing so that way they fit. Once you get to this point, put pliers on here and wiggle it out of the boot. So we're gonna have to pop out this collar, and then we'll replace it with the one from the other shock. So you're gonna need a big bolt. You put it through the big socket, which is going to be pressed up around here, but make sure it's smaller than the collar, but almost the same size as this. If it's the same size, you're doing good. So you put that through like so. Put that. Now you need a socket that is smaller than the collar. I have a spare here, so I can, or not that one, but I have it's that size. You're gonna put it there. See how it's only on the metal? It's only on that metal outlay. Put that there. Put this here. Now, I'm only using this bolt because it's all I have in the garage right now. But what you're gonna do is, if you have a hex, you're going to tighten it, and what's gonna happen is you'll put a ratchet on this end just to hold it, and then you'll ratchet down this end, and it'll pop that metal piece out a little bit so it's like half out, And then what you can do is wiggle the socket out, grab that, put it in the vise like so, or grab with a pair of pliers and wiggle it out the rest of the way. You get to that point, put it in your vise or grab with a pair of pliers and just start working it out. Wiggle it, shoot it with some penetrating fluid like so, and just work it out. There you go. All I did is put it like this, put it on top, used rubber mallet, hit it a couple times on the top. So once you have your shock out, the next thing to do is we're gonna loosen off our sway bar. This can be troublesome too because it hasn't moved in a while. So we're gonna take a look and see if we can get our sway bar to go. You can either loosen it up here or take it off right here. I might just take it off from right here, but either way, it's gonna be troublesome. Shoot it with some penetrating fluid so that way we can remove that. So when we jack it up, it isn't attached. Another thing to look for when you're doing this is see this spring holder. You might have to take this off. One side had it on ours and the other side did not. We're gonna show you how to use spring compressors. This is the next process. We're gonna try and do it without, but this will save you so much time if you just use spring compressors. So what you're gonna wanna do is when the vehicle is completely no weight on the jack, springs are compressed, just tighten these bad boys up. Warning for everyone. I do not recommend doing this if you're uncomfortable. Again, this can be a very dangerous process. Do not cheap out on spring compressors. See how these ones actually tie in and they lock onto the spring? So you bolt this down so they squeeze and they pinch it. Do not use one that just has a pin style, meaning you slide a pin in. You could slip so easily with them and it's like a grenade going off when you have a coil that's fully compressed suddenly being decompressed. So I highly suggest using something strong and that you know is not gonna fail you. So as you can see, I'm just slowly gonna wind these down as closely as I can so it's compressed. Then we're going to jack up the body of the vehicle while it's still on the axle stand. And after it does that, you're gonna notice that your spring is gonna stay compressed and then you should be able to just slide it out. When you are loosening them or tightening them, go this side, this side, this side, this side, constantly rotating, keeping the spring balanced. You don't want one side with all the pressure on it. You can see we're at a point now where it's like, okay, we're there in the fact that I can move this around, all that other fun stuff. Like I said, be careful with the spring being compressed, but at the same time, we're gonna use a bit of a wrecking bar here, get under that spring, and we're gonna just lift it a little bit out. That's all there is to it. It is out. It was crazy, but it is out. That is the old spring. We're gonna loosen those very, very slowly. And yes, that is what a time bomb looks like. So be very careful once it's out. We just jacked the Jeep up a little bit off the axle stand, but you'll notice it gets up off the axle stand, but if you keep jacking it up, it spreads it a little bit more. It still spreads it. So go as much, keep going until and you're gonna also need someone to press down on this. It just keeps your sway bar link down a little bit. But once you do that, you're good to go. I mean, we're at that point. One thing I totally forgot to mention to you guys during the video, and I apologize, is when you attach these clips, make sure you have the jack at full extension before, and then what you do is when you drop it down, you'll see the clips go down, and then that is where you would cinch your bolts down. So that way you just jack it up and your spring's already compressed. It saves you a whole bunch of screwing when you're over there. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is so that way you know when it's fully decompressed again and it's out of the vehicle, you have enough to just take that straight up. Grab, wiggle, keep grabbing and wiggling until she comes out. Once that's out, you might have to get within there. If you fill in there, it's probably, if you've been driving around for like 200,000 kilometers, it's gonna be full of sediment down to here. So it is completely up to you. Your spacer might fit right over it. For me, I'm gonna have to take the bump stop off to get my spacer on. For you, you might just say, you know what, I'm just gonna hole saw mine bigger, but that is completely up to you. What I'm gonna do is take this cup off. Once you wiggle that out, you'll have your 15mm bolt. Some good news. The bolt, after you loosen that 15, it is long, but it's in the cup just like so, and it's up in there. Once you loosen it, this comes right off. After that is off, take a look. You can clean that off and put it, actually, if you want to, just a little bit of even dish soap on a rag, and you're just gonna lube this up. It's either that or just shoot some penetrating fluid, but whatever you wanna do, lube that up so you can slip on your spacers. I'm gonna be putting on 2 inches worth of coil spacing. I could do 2.5. There we go, spacers are in. Just lubed it nice and up with penetration. And then after that, rubber mallet on this side, me and Chris just hit on each side and then just suction her right up. Now we can put, we might even just throw the bump stop inside the spring, put it on, and then put the bump stop back in. I mean, I'll let you choose the way you want to do it, but it's definitely gonna be fun getting that coil in. Look at that beaut, holy smokes. We have the jack at full tilt and we didn't use the spring compressors. Do I think we could have gotten the old ones out with spring compressors in the front? So if you have, like I have the factory washers, problem is my bushings have gone Captain AWOL. If you're having this, you're gonna have to separate it so you can drill it. So you can just put it on its side, which I can't do with a camera in my hands, and you're gonna separate it like that. Just get your screwdriver in there and you're just gonna drill that metal plate to a 1/2 inch. There you go. So if you do a 1/2 inch on your old ones, you can slip it right on, ready to go. Now, how this is gonna go is it'll go that, rubber, then rubber, and you can see that they have this nipple facing down. This goes into the body. So as you can see, that one's up, this one's down. Well, and then that would squeeze on, that would go on here, put your bolts on. So when you're going to put in your coil, make sure that it sits in the bed. Now, after it's in, that's fine. Put your strut in or your shock. As you can see, done up there when you're tightening it. Remember, if you told this out of your JK, you just put 1 box wrench here and then you tighten it on top. Then down here, just crank these 2 down. I don't have torque specs for you. You could look them up. But you could also look at my Jeep video and I say torque specs for bottom and top bolts. Just all I usually do is I have one hand on the ratchet and I crank them down and that holds. You can always double check these in about 500 kilometers or 500 miles, whichever, and you could double check and make sure you're still 100% good. Other than that, you could technically put your sway bar link back on or just leave it for now. We're gonna go to the other side. Repeat what we did here. So I'm not gonna show how to do this again. Just pull out your old coil, pull out the strut, do the same thing. So right here, when you tighten this, you'll see the bushing compress and that is it. Like just tighten up, you'll feel like it tight, and as long as those are compressed, you're good. Take a look at that. That is a big difference. If you have a TJ, compare it to yours. Like we're looking at the front here, you can definitely see that you have a huge camber. Like this thing's like right there and it should be like that. Don't forget your track bar bolt underneath. Bolt that up. As you can see, he's in dire need of thread. This is just painted. Commence the rear is crack the bolts, e-brake if you can, especially if you're standard, chuck the front. Or at least put 2x4s in the front. If you take a look, it's a good thing we're doing these. Holy smokes. I know they're rusted. At first, because I'm used to the JKs, which are straight up and down, I was like, oh, do they snap? And then I seen that both sides were at the same angle, so they either both snapped or they didn't, and yeah. While it's on the body right now, as you can see, springs, everything's still here. Go underneath, undo that track bar bolt. I highly suggest that you do it from the top. The reason why is the top track bar bolt will be a little easier to get at, but the bottom one is right where the gas tank is. Passenger side, you look into the wheel well, there is your shock, and there, right above the shock, right there, is track bar. So let's line up the bolt and stuff and let's hit it. I highly suggest you shoot it with some penetration and give it 5 minutes. This side 15, that side 18. Unbolt it so it just sits right here. Then we'll unbolt the 2 that are up here. I decided to pull the shock out first to show you. It's hard to see. See, there's the bolt. I was able to get an extension up there right beside the gas tank on the side, get that one out, get the other one out, and they're just 15s. And then putting these back in is gonna be super simple. At least this one, we don't have to modify the shock at all. It's just drop right in. And look at the difference. Beauty. This bushing was so bad, I popped the collar out with my finger. So, that bushing, done skis. Make sure you shoot penetrating fluid on every one of the bolts and let it sit there for 5 minutes, because the last thing you want to do is snap one of these bolts up there, because then you're dropping your gas tank at least to start reaming it out. Decided we'd take out the sway bar bolt right here. If you take a look, diff tube breather, make sure you release it up here. There's a clip right up here. I just moved it out. Now it's nice and slacky. Remember, just watch your lines as you're lifting. Once you've gotten it at max here, as you can see, we've got it as much as we can get the spring to go. We're gonna put the spring compressor on and make sure you don't bypass the limits of the spring compressor, so that way when you release the springs, it doesn't catastrophically blow up in your face. So we put the Jeep at full lift, as you can see. And when we did that, just like the fronts, we put on the spring compressors. After we put the compressor on, we jacked it, and then after that, tightened it to the maximum it would go. After that, as you can see, we had one person bend down on these, and after they bent down on them, we then loosened it. You have to actually, as you can see, loosen it like it's actually wound into here, and it's rusted, so it can be fun. You're gonna grab each side of the spring compressors if you're gutsy enough, and you've got the same ones as us, and you're gonna basically try and unwind it a little bit. Once you do that, take your pry bar and try and pry it over the lip. It should let go. For getting over this, we just did the bump stop as well. Just like the front, unscrew that. I have some really, really crazy, unspeakable news that we did not try to do, but it worked. Try and get these exact bloody parts, and I'll show you why in a second. 9.9101G. You get these, you take the bolt off, and they screw right into the old bump stop location. You put this in, because I'll show you why we have to do this in a second. But just crank her in there. And then it's in like so. Beautiful, right? You know what's even more beautiful? Pulling it out, putting the spring on your lap, and realizing it is the perfect fit, like suction fit in. So just take off the nut, put it in like so, and then extend and put your new spring in. Way easier to put it in. All you do is get it as best well lined up as you can, and then it's not gonna slip in here. This coil is way thicker. And just set it up there. You can see it around our new bump stop. Looking good. Other than that, release the coils slowly. Remember, rotate, 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 rotate. And after you're done, it's time to go to the other side and repeat the exact same thing. When you button up this side, go ahead and put your sway bar link back on, bolt in the new shock, and we'll just give you a quick rundown. I mean, there's nothing really too crazy to show you. For when you're putting in the new JK shock, bolt the two in up top first. Just get that done with. Once their two bolts are done up there, and again, just hand crank them nice and tight, but don't He-Man them. Way too easy to screw yourself up. So once you do that, you will come here, spread this like you're opening, yeah. After you spread the loops, hammer it in a little bit, and once you get it in there, line it up with the screwdriver. Once you get it all lined up and she's all good, just tighten it up, and let's get this nice and compressed. Again, you're just tightening it enough so this collars sit and you don't want it to move at all. So yeah, once you get her in there, you're good. Look how pretty that is. Go copy it to the exact same way to the other side. Don't forget about your sway bar link. Once we get the other side done, we'll just quickly put the track bar back in. Literally just follow the steps that we did on the other side. When it comes to putting the track bar back in, you just have to get somebody to lean into the body of the Jeep, and when they lean, you slip the pan bar back in, or yeah, the bar back in, and you'll be fine. Go over everything, jack it up, put both tires back on, and let's see how she looks. Bam! Look at that, all done. Looks good. It's level with the front, so liking it. Is it worth doing? Yes, if you've got a couple of the parts and you're willing to spend a bit of money. I mean, the biggest thing is after you get the TJ parts, make sure you get the bump stops and make sure you get the spacers for the front. Once you have that, it's just making sure you have the tools. Most expensive tool being you have the spring compressor. Once you have the spring compressor, everything about this is easy. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope it helps you give it a couple inches into your TJ, and thanks again for watching. Press like if it did and subscribe for more.